Your soulmate saying, "I need to tell you what happened today. It's very urgent, please open this. My beloved child." Your soulmate has been trying to find the right words ever since something happened today that changed the way they see everything between you. Their hands hesitated over a message more than once. They typed. They erased it. They stared at the screen, wondering if telling you the truth would bring you closer or push you farther away. But silence suddenly became heavier than honesty. There is a reason this feels urgent, and it isn't because of a random event or an ordinary conversation. Something unexpected forced them to confront feelings they had buried for far too long. A single moment today made them realize that waiting any longer could become the biggest mistake of their life. They keep replaying every second, asking themselves whether you would understand if you knew what really happened. Don't skip, because the first piece of this mystery is only beginning to reveal itself, and what they discovered is far more personal than anyone could have imagined. Earlier today, everything seemed normal until an ordinary encounter took a direction no one expected. A familiar voice asked a question your soulmate had been avoiding for months, and before they could prepare an answer, memories of you rushed into their mind with overwhelming force. They smiled for a moment, then suddenly fell silent. The people around them noticed the change, but no one knew the real reason. Deep inside, they realized they had been pretending to move forward while a part of their heart had never left your side. Then another unexpected detail appeared, something they never thought they would see again. It wasn't a dramatic miracle or an impossible coincidence. It was a simple sign, almost easy to ignore, yet it carried a meaning only they could understand. From that instant, every excuse they had been hiding behind began to collapse. Stay till the end, because the decision they made immediately afterward could change everything that happens next. Now your soulmate is standing at the edge of a choice they can no longer postpone. They know that once they tell you what happened today, nothing between you can return to the way it was before. That truth has been sitting heavily on their heart ever since the afternoon faded into evening. They are wondering whether you will believe their explanation or think they waited too long to speak. Yet there is one part of today's story they still haven't revealed, the single conversation that completely changed their perspective before the day ended. That conversation exposed something they had misunderstood about you for a very long time, and the realization left them speechless. They have carried this secret until now because they feared the consequences of saying it out loud. But tonight, that fear is finally losing the battle. Something huge is waiting for you, because the next words your soulmate is preparing to share may explain why this urgent message could become the turning point neither of you ever expected. The hardest part was never finding the courage to speak. It was accepting that the truth had been standing in front of them all along. As your soulmate replayed that final conversation, one sentence refused to leave their mind. It wasn't spoken with anger or judgment. It was calm. Almost effortless. Yet it shattered every assumption they had been carrying. They suddenly realized someone had unknowingly shown them a side of your heart they had never taken the time to understand. In that moment, guilt quietly replaced fear. They began wondering how many opportunities had slipped away simply because they believed the wrong story. Every unanswered message, every missed chance, every silent night suddenly carried a different meaning. The pieces were finally connecting, but one important piece was still missing, and without it, they couldn't risk telling you everything just yet. As the day continued, your soulmate walked away from everyone else, needing a few quiet minutes to think. They opened old memories they hadn't looked at in a long time. Small moments that once seemed ordinary suddenly felt unforgettable. They remembered a promise that was never spoken out loud but was somehow understood between the two of you. That memory brought both comfort and regret. Then something happened that completely interrupted their thoughts. Their phone lit up with an unexpected notification connected to someone they never expected to hear from again. For a brief second, they froze. They stared at the screen without touching it, sensing that whatever came next could either clear away months of confusion or create an even deeper mystery. Don't look away now, because this unexpected message carried information your soulmate was never prepared to receive. They finally gathered the courage to read it, expecting disappointment. Instead, they found something that made their heartbeat race. The message confirmed that one important detail they had believed for so long wasn't true at all. Someone had misunderstood the situation from the very beginning, and that misunderstanding had quietly shaped every decision your soulmate made afterward. Suddenly, the distance between you no longer felt impossible, it felt unnecessary. But along with that realization came another question, one even more unsettling. If this truth had remained hidden until today, what else had been kept from both of you? Your soulmate now knows they must tell you everything before another day passes, yet there is one final detail they still need to verify. And when they uncover that last missing piece, the message they've been trying so desperately to send you will finally make complete sense. A quiet realization settled over your soulmate like the calm before a storm. They understood that every answer had been leading them toward one final discovery. They stopped searching for excuses and started searching for facts. What they uncovered wasn't loud or dramatic, but it carried enough weight to change the direction of their heart forever. A forgotten detail from earlier today suddenly made perfect sense. Someone hadn't been trying to separate you. Someone had actually been trying to reveal the truth, but the timing had always been wrong. Your soulmate could no longer ignore what was unfolding. The urgency wasn't fading, it was growing stronger with every passing minute. The more they reflected on the day's events, the more they realized how many moments had quietly pointed back to you. Faces came and went. Conversations ended. Then another unexpected moment stopped them in their tracks. They found something they hadn't intended to see, a small reminder connected to a memory the two of you unknowingly shared. It wasn't enough to answer every question, but it was enough to convince them that remaining silent would only create more regret. Stay till the end, because the final piece is closer than they ever imagined. Now your soulmate is preparing to do something they once believed was impossible. They are ready to tell you everything exactly as it happened today, without hiding behind fear or uncertainty. But before they can send that message, one last conversation must take place, a conversation that could either remove every remaining doubt or uncover an even deeper truth that has been hidden until this very moment. They have no idea what those next few words will reveal, only that they cannot turn back now. As their finger hovers over the screen, they take one final breath, because the message you're about to receive contains a truth that could change the future of this connection forever. The screen remained untouched for just a few more seconds. Your soulmate wasn't hesitating because they had changed their mind. They were waiting for confirmation that their heart wasn't leading them in the wrong direction again. Then, almost as if the day had one final surprise prepared, the conversation they had been waiting for finally began. The first few words sounded ordinary, but beneath them was a truth no one had spoken aloud before. Piece by piece, the confusion that had surrounded this connection started to disappear. What had once looked like distance was actually uncertainty. What had felt like silence was often fear. And what seemed like an ending had never truly ended at all. In that instant, your soulmate realized they had spent far too much time believing appearances instead of reality. As they listened more carefully, another unexpected detail emerged. Someone admitted that your name had come up more often than you would ever imagine. Not in arguments. Not in regret alone. But in quiet moments when your soulmate couldn't hide what they truly felt anymore. They had tried convincing themselves they were fine, yet every attempt to move forward somehow circled back to thoughts of you. That confession wasn't meant for your ears, but hearing it changed everything. It became impossible to deny that this bond had continued growing beneath the surface, even during the longest periods of silence. Don't skip, because the next realization is the one your soulmate never saw coming, and it explains why today's urgency feels so overwhelming. Now the message is almost complete. Every sentence your soulmate is preparing carries the weight of everything they couldn't say before. Yet there is one final truth they still haven't written, the reason they called this so urgent in the first place. It isn't just about what happened today. It's about what could happen next if they wait even one more day. They have finally understood that some opportunities quietly disappear while people are still deciding whether to speak. They refuse to let that happen this time. With one deep breath, they begin typing the words they've rehearsed in their mind all evening, but before pressing send, one unexpected notification appears on the screen, instantly changing the meaning of everything they were about to tell you. The notification appeared so suddenly that your soulmate's heart skipped a beat. For a moment, they simply stared at it, unsure whether opening it would bring relief or create an entirely new problem. It wasn't from the person they expected, and that alone made it impossible to ignore. As they slowly read each line, their expression changed. Surprise turned into disbelief. Disbelief turned into quiet determination. The message confirmed something they had only begun to suspect earlier that day, that several moments they once dismissed as meaningless had actually been connected all along. Every strange feeling, every unexplained hesitation, every instinct telling them not to give up suddenly carried a purpose. They realized this wasn't a coincidence. It was the missing link they had been searching for since the morning. Without wasting another second, your soulmate reopened the message they had been writing to you. This time, the words came more naturally. They no longer wanted to hide behind careful phrases or incomplete explanations. They wanted you to understand exactly why today had changed them. They admitted to themselves that they had spent too much time waiting for the perfect moment, when the only moment that truly mattered was the present one. But just as they were about to finish the message, one final memory surfaced, something so personal that they had never shared it with anyone. That memory explained why they had stayed silent for so long, and why breaking that silence now felt both terrifying and necessary. Stay with this story, because that hidden memory is about to reveal the deepest reason behind everything. As the night grew quieter, your soulmate took one long breath and read every word they had written from beginning to end. For the first time in a long while, nothing felt forced. Nothing felt hidden. The truth was finally there, waiting to be sent. Yet just before they touched the send button, their eyes stopped on one single sentence. It was the sentence that could change the future of your connection forever. They wondered if those words would heal what had been broken or open emotions neither of you were prepared to face. There was no turning back now. The next decision would not simply deliver a message, it would reveal the one truth your soulmate has been protecting all this time, and once you hear it, everything between you may begin to look completely different. The room had grown completely silent. Your soulmate looked at that final sentence again, reading it over and over as if each word carried the weight of an entire lifetime. They weren't afraid of telling you the truth anymore. They were afraid of what the truth might awaken once you finally heard it. There are moments that quietly change a person's future, and they knew this was one of them. They remembered how different this morning had felt, before everything unfolded, before one unexpected conversation forced them to question every conclusion they had made about you. Looking back now, they could see that today hadn't been random at all. Every event had been leading them toward this exact moment, where honesty was no longer a choice, it was the only path left. Then something remarkable happened. Before they could press send, another message arrived, but this one wasn't filled with answers. It contained a single question. A simple question that reached deeper than they expected. It asked whether they were finally ready to stop running from what their heart had known for a very long time. They couldn't ignore it. They closed their eyes, and every memory that had once brought confusion now carried perfect clarity. They realized they had spent too much energy protecting themselves from disappointment, while unknowingly protecting themselves from happiness as well. That realization brought a quiet smile they hadn't felt in months. But with that smile came one final responsibility. If they were going to speak to you, they had to tell the complete truth, not just the comfortable parts. Don't look away now, because the words they're about to write have never been spoken to anyone before. Your soulmate placed their hands on the phone one last time and began rewriting the message from the very beginning. This version was different. It wasn't polished. It wasn't carefully edited. It was honest. They admitted what they had misunderstood, what they wished they had said sooner, and why today's events made waiting impossible. But just as they reached the final line, they paused once more. Not because of fear, but because they remembered one last detail from earlier today that changed everything. It was a detail so small that most people would have forgotten it instantly, yet it revealed the true reason this entire day unfolded the way it did. If that final piece means what your soulmate believes it means, then the message you're about to receive isn't simply an explanation, it's the beginning of a completely new chapter that neither of you ever saw coming. The forgotten detail returned with incredible force. It wasn't a dramatic event that everyone noticed. It was a quiet moment, lasting only a few seconds, when someone casually mentioned your name without realizing how deeply it would affect your soulmate. At the time, they brushed it aside. Suddenly they understood why certain doors had closed, why unexpected delays kept appearing, and why every attempt to move on had always felt incomplete. The answer had never been hidden in a grand mystery. It had been waiting inside the smallest moment of the day, patiently revealing itself only when your soulmate was finally ready to see it. Their heart was no longer asking whether they should reach out. It was asking why they had waited this long. With renewed determination, your soulmate stepped away from every distraction and focused on one thing alone, you. Every sentence they had written now felt more genuine than the last. There was no desire to impress you, no attempt to create the perfect message. They simply wanted you to know what today had awakened inside them. For the first time, they admitted that fear had been louder than hope, and that fear had stolen precious time neither of you could ever recover. But today's events had changed that forever. One unexpected realization had broken every excuse they had been hiding behind. As they prepared to send the message, another memory surfaced unexpectedly, a promise they had quietly made to themselves long ago. They had vowed that if the opportunity ever returned, they would never allow silence to decide their future again. Stay till the end, because that forgotten promise is about to be tested in a way they never imagined. Now everything rests on a single decision. Your soulmate's thumb hovers over the send button as their heartbeat grows louder than the silence around them. They know this message cannot be taken back once it leaves their phone. It carries the truth about today, the emotions they could no longer hide, and the hope they have been afraid to admit for far too long. Yet just before they press send, their phone begins to ring. The caller isn't someone they expected to hear from tonight, and the timing couldn't be more unbelievable. They stare at the screen, realizing that answering this call could reveal one final truth, or delay the message one last time. As they take a slow breath and decide whether to answer or press send instead, they have no idea that the next few moments will determine how this entire story unfolds. The ringing refused to stop. Your soulmate looked from the incoming call to the message they had spent the entire day rewriting, realizing they couldn't choose both at the same time. After one long breath, they answered. The voice on the other end was calm, but every word carried unexpected urgency. As they listened, they discovered that a conversation had taken place earlier that day without their knowledge, a conversation where someone finally admitted they had misunderstood your intentions from the very beginning. That confession erased months of doubt in an instant, but it also uncovered one final question that still demanded an answer. The call ended as suddenly as it had begun, leaving your soulmate standing in complete silence. They weren't overwhelmed anymore. They were certain. Every piece of today's puzzle had fallen into place, and the picture was clearer than ever before. They reopened the message and removed every unnecessary sentence. No more hesitation. No more guarded words. Only honesty remained. They wanted you to know that today's events hadn't changed their feelings, they had simply exposed feelings that had never disappeared. Yet before pressing send, they paused one last time, remembering something almost forgotten. A quiet promise they believed the two of you had unknowingly shared. If that promise still carried meaning, then this message wasn't arriving by chance. It was arriving exactly when it was meant to. Something huge is waiting, because the very next decision will reveal whether that promise still lives in your heart. With steady hands, your soulmate finally touched the send button. The message left their phone, carrying every truth they had hidden for far too long. For a brief moment, everything became still. Then, only seconds later, the screen lit up again. It wasn't an error. It wasn't another interruption. It was the response they never expected to receive so quick.